Taiwan People's Party supporters turn out to back their party's embattled leader Ko Wen-je after he's arrested again over a corruption case. Heavy rain brings widespread disruption in eastern Taiwan with significant travel delays.
It's been more than a month since Typhoon Gaemi wreaked havoc on Taiwan. But for many people in indigenous communities like this one, life has not yet returned to normal.
Plus, the Paralympic Games wrap up in style in Paris with an electronic music dance party. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Leslie Liao. The founder of Taiwan's third largest party, Ko Wen-je, will not appeal his detention and remains in custody amid an investigation into corruption allegations against him. Ko's party is rallying to protest the probe, accusing the government of political persecution. Joyce Sung has the latest.
Speaking up without his leader, the Taiwan People's Party, or TPP's caucus whip, Huang Guochang, backs party chair Ko Wen-je, who's being held incommunicado. Ko has been detained amid corruption allegations from his time as Taipei mayor, a probe that his supporters claim is politically motivated. After less than 4 days in custody, Ko has decided not to appeal the detention, a decision Huang hopes will be explained in due time.
我相信在适当的时候，他会透过适当的方式让大家知道。
That leaves few cards for Ko's legal team to play as the investigation goes on, which has also seen the detention of others close to Ko, like his deputy mayor. Ko's lawyers have announced that they will not appeal his detention, which means that he will remain here in custody for 2 months with a possible extension of an additional 2 if prosecutors can convince the court that they need more time to complete the investigation. Anger has been growing among Ko's supporters. They're convinced their leader is being targeted by the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, for running a competitive presidential campaign this January and breaking Taiwan's historically two-party system between the DPP and opposition Kuomintang, or KMT. The TPP's rally in the capital saw thousands of people show up, including Ko's wife, Peggy Chen, who delivered an emotional plea to clear her husband's name. But ruling DPP members insist that Ko must be held accountable for his time as the head of Taipei.
好像把柯文哲的责任撇得一干二净，但请陈佩琪不要忘记了，你老公是当了2届台北市长的人，他盖过的章必须要负起完全的政治责任。
Now it's up to prosecutors to build their case against the man who's raised an influential third-party voice in Taiwan's political arena, while Ko's supporters watch to build theirs against a government they believe is out to suppress its opponents. Joseph Wu and Joyce Sen for TaiwanPlus.
For more about Ko Wen-je's case and some of the legal questions it's raised, reporter Ed Moon spoke to Taiwan-based lawyer Michael Fahey.
Ko Wen-je is currently in pre-trial detention where he can be kept for a maximum of 4 months while prosecutors build their case against him. Can you tell us a little bit about how pre-trial detention works in Taiwan and how it differs from common law countries like the US and the UK?
Pre-trial detention is something that's commonly seen in what we call civil law countries, which are countries that have legal systems based on continental Europe, especially Germany, but also France. And in criminal cases, we see pretrial detention. Here in Taiwan, it can be up to 4 months. In Japan, I think in theory it's 23 days, but it can be extended many times.
Ko Wen-je is far from the only politician in Taiwan to be investigated for corruption. Can you tell us how common it is that charges are eventually brought in these cases? And if he is convicted, what kind of a punishment could he be looking at?
These kinds of cases are extremely common, probably more common on the city and council level. you'll see cases like this every few months with indictments and pretrial detentions of council speakers and civil servants and the bureaucracy and that kind of thing. You probably see a major case like this involving a national level politician like Ko once every 3 or 4 years. He'd be looking at a multi-year prison sentence, especially if there was a bribe, 7 years, 10 years, something like that. It depends on the number of acts of corruption and a lot of variables.
Supporters of Ko and his Taiwan People's Party say that this investigation into him has got some serious flaws, what they've called procedural injustice. And they've even gone so far as to say that the current government is carrying out what it calls political persecution. Do you think that their concerns over the way this case has been handled are legitimate?
I think that they have some legitimate concerns, but those are concerns that all criminal suspects have in Taiwan. Their main concern seems to be that information is leaking out of the prosecutorial investigation that's adverse to Mayor Ko. And they're right. Those proceedings are supposed to be absolutely confidential and secret. I also think that there's a serious concern with the abuse of the pretrial detention procedure as a form of hostage justice. It's real easy for the prosecutors to put 2 or 3 different people involved in the case in pretrial detention. It's scary. There's a lot of questioning late at night, and they're using it as a tool to coerce. So yeah, I think they have some legitimate complaints, but they're complaints that all criminal defendants in Taiwan have, and hopefully this will be a chance for everybody to reflect on how we could have a more just criminal justice system.
That was Taiwan-based lawyer Michael Fahey. Work crews have restored road and rail access to Taiwan's east coast after landslides caused travel chaos late Sunday. John Van Trieste has this update.
After hours of scrambling, work crews have finally cleared a landslide that severed transport links on the east coast. But for this crowd of stranded travelers, it comes too late. They've poured into Hualien Station, one of the biggest stations on the east coast, trying to get a train out after the highway to the northern cities was buried. But as they'll soon find out, the railway was shut down too as a precaution as heavy rains continued. Transport in this rugged part of the country is always precarious. With high mountains forming a solid wall in most places, there are only a few roads and one rail line in and out, with rock slides frequently disrupting them. But a Sunday evening is bad timing. Those in a hurry will have to take a roundabout route that will add many hours to their journey. Others already on their way decided to turn back instead.
Though
the rail and highway links are now finally open again, weather forecasters say the East Coast isn't in the clear yet.
明天像是大台北啦，还有东北部地区以及花东附近这一带都有一些不定时的短暂阵雨。
And full speed service on the rail could take some time to come back, meaning Sunday's travel headache may not be completely over. Chris Ma and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
It's been over a month since Typhoon Gaemi struck Taiwan. The storm left 11 dead, homes flooded, and hundreds of thousands of people without power. While most of Taiwan's big cities have long cleared up the debris, remote indigenous communities are struggling to return to normal. Rick Liao reports.
For the last few weeks, Indigenous Lugai couple Ula and Nauda have been living here in what remains of what was meant to be their forever home. They poured their life savings into this house, which was damaged by a landslide when Typhoon Gaemi hit this mountainous area in southern Taiwan just over a month ago. The couple have been waiting for government subsidies to rebuild and have no plans of leaving the land that their people have been on for generations.
这里是我们厨房，这个之前也是浴室，那这个厨房在这里被吹走了，一生的努力在这里，结果一夜之间就被摧毁，我们真的是不知道怎么样过日子。
Typhoon Gaemi brought 200 km/h winds and more than 2 meters of rain to southern Taiwan, causing widespread flooding and leaving hundreds of thousands of people without power. While the typhoon damage in the big cities has largely been cleared up, communities further away from the urban centres are struggling to return to normalcy. It's in rural mountain areas like this that many of Taiwan's population of 600,000 indigenous people live. Often relying on farming or manual labour to get by, they face higher unemployment rates and lower wages than the majority Han Chinese population. They're also further removed from basic services like healthcare and schools, and more vulnerable to natural calamities. After centuries of persecution and discrimination, Taiwan's indigenous communities now have their rights enshrined in the law. But many say they still feel the sting of inequality, particularly at times of crisis.
Now, discrimination between the Taiwanese and the indigenous now is more better. So, but not enough. For me, it's not enough. For example, disaster rescue after the disaster coming, the government always late or not very quickly to provide relief or rescue help.
Taiwan, an island nation prone to both earthquakes and typhoons, has been investing billions of US dollars to improve its disaster responses. But the government admits the remote indigenous communities can be left behind.
例如原住民他在高山部落，他的语言、他的文化本来就不一样，所以他每个族的语言文化都不一样，所以会造成一些差异。而这差异，政府就要想办法，差异部分一定要尊重，因为它是他们民族的文化。
For generations, these indigenous communities have lived off the land and they've become attuned to Taiwan's challenging weather. They've developed their own survival techniques like storing root vegetables and dried meat and fish to sustain them through times of isolation. But, they say, climate change is making typhoon season more extreme and unpredictable, and that they need the government's help to face the evolving threats of natural disasters. Klein Wang and Rick Liao for TaiwanPlus.
Typhoon Yagi is losing steam in Vietnam after killing at least 59 people and leaving a trail of destruction across the country's northern regions. Fallen trees are strewn across streets and thousands of homes are damaged. A bridge has collapsed, throwing cars into a river. Thousands of people have been evacuated from coastal towns and some are without power. The storm is Asia's strongest this year and had hit the Philippines and southern China before moving into Vietnam. Vietnamese authorities have downgraded Yagi to a tropical depression as it weakens. North Korean state media has released a photo of leader Kim Jong-un inspecting a new missile launcher. Military experts say the launcher may be used with some kind of ballistic missile, possibly nuclear capable. The photo was revealed ahead of the anniversary of North Korea's founding on Monday. Last week, the U.S. and South Korea held talks on how to deter North Korea from using its growing nuclear arsenal. Coming up after the break, Taiwan is rethinking its plans for its domestic submarine program.
Start your weekend with a cup of coffee and a moment to reflect on what happened this week.
Hello and welcome.
We've got you covered, from defense and politics to high tech and the arts.
Not just to Taiwan, the whole world is watching.
You make the coffee, we make the news. Here's what happened on TaiwanPlus.
I'm Joyson in Bangkok, Thailand, and you're watching TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world. Charted by the freest country in Asia.
5, 4, 3, 2.
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Ian Kavat. Taiwanese semiconductor giant TSMC.
Public buses to be electric by 2030. A mission that begins with listening.
And telling the stories of Taiwan.
In Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Drawing insight from original thinkers.
And sharing it with the world. TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Taiwan is set to start building more of its own submarines next year, but there has been a lot of concern about how to make them efficiently. And now it's emerged that the plan for how to build them has changed. Jaime Okan reports.
Taiwan's domestic submarine program has an updated production schedule. That's according to unnamed military sources quoted by the Central News Agency. 7 submarines will be built in batches of 2, 3, and 2, so that the Navy can look at the first batch and make any changes before starting on the second. This is a change from what President Liao originally wanted, which was to build all 7 in one go. But concerns from the shipbuilder about the plan's feasibility and cost led to the change. The first sub, the prototype, was unveiled last year. The submarine program was launched in 2015, and it's worth around $11 billion and aims to produce a total of 8 submarines domestically. Given the threat that Taiwan faces from China, which claims Taiwan as part of its own, critics of the program say the submarines are just too expensive. They say Taiwan could do better to invest in things like missiles and drones because the country can never match the number of ships in China's fleet. Others say that submarines could have a vital role to play. If China tried to blockade Taiwan, Taiwan could use the subs as a deterrent because they're harder to track and could help keep ports along Taiwan's eastern coast open, but that is also debatable. Regardless of how Taiwan decides to use its submarines, it's looking to enter production of these 7 ships by next year, looking to finish all 7 submarines by 2038. Eason Pan, Leon Lian, and Jaime Okan in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
China says that relations with the Philippines are at a crossroads. In a commentary published by the People's Daily, a Communist Party newspaper, China said that the Philippines should seriously consider the future. The two sides have clashed on multiple occasions in recent months in the South China Sea, including one confrontation in June that saw a Filipino sailor lose a thumb. China claims almost all of the South China Sea as its own, including parts claimed by the Philippines. Police in the Philippines have arrested a megachurch pastor accused of sex abuse and human trafficking. Apollo Kibaloy, founder of the religious group Kingdom of Jesus Christ, had been on the run for 3 years. He was found hiding in a church compound and surrendered after a 2-week standoff with authorities. He is wanted by both the Philippines and the U.S. Pope Francis is wrapping up his last day in Papua New Guinea, the second stop in a 12-day Asia-Pacific tour. He's sought to bring a message of peace and unity to the country, as Rosie Greninger now reports.
Deep in the jungles of Papua New Guinea, thousands gather in a field to greet Pope Francis. The 87-year-old leader of the Catholic Church visited one of the most remote communities of his faithful, bringing medical supplies and other aid to this town of Vanimo, where electricity is scarce and there's no running water. Here, the Pope met with missionaries and addressed enthusiastic crowds.
Vivete in una terra magnifica, ricca di una grande varietà di piante, di uccelli, in cui si resta a bocca aperta davanti ai colori, suoni, profumi e anche allo spettacolo grandioso di una natura che esplode di vita, evocando l'immagine dell'Eden.
Papua New Guinea is the second stop of the Pope's 12-day Asia-Pacific tour, after visiting Muslim-majority Indonesia. In the capital Port Moresby, Pope Francis greeted thousands of devotees during a Sunday Mass, reassuring them of God's closeness. He also gathered with church representatives from other Pacific Island nations and met with impoverished children and young people with disabilities. In a country that's been rocked by tribal conflict this year, residents say the Pope's presence is bringing a message of peace and unity.
When Pope come into our country, we feel like we are happy. All of us, we are happy right now. So it's a vast thing right now. Prominent thing we ever seen before. Right now we see.
It's a very historical moment by which his visit to Papua New Guinea is very inspiring to the young ones, and especially to our country for the current situations in which the country is undergoing, and more on that, on the spiritual journey, that he inspires a lot of people and gives and conveys the message of peace and mercy to the country Papua New Guinea.
The Pope's next stop, the majority Catholic East Timor, where residents are on the streets of capital Dili preparing their performances for his arrival. The Pope's visit, also a business opportunity for many.
Ini ada 6-7 macam. Setiap satu sekitar 70-100 yang dihabis. Sampai sekarang sekitar $600 kita dapat.
His palpable trip to Asia and Oceania will wrap up with a stop in Singapore, where the excitement is already brewing. Many supporters here calling his visit a once-in-a-lifetime event. Pope Francis is expected to meet Singapore's leadership and continue interfaith dialogue. This 12-day journey is the longest of his papacy so far, a clear indication of the Church's pivot to the region. Dolphine Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
A record number of dolphins and whales are washing up on Taiwan's beaches every year, and a group of volunteers are doing their best to respond. Harel Hughes reports.
On a beach in northeastern Taiwan, an unwelcome sight. A dwarf sperm whale struggling on the sand, and a group of volunteers racing to save its life. They've been trained by marine conservation organization, the Taiwan Cetacean Society.
因为多数的民众都是喜欢自然的，多数的民众也都喜欢接近自然、保护自然。对，那只不过就是鲸豚它是一个媒介，就是让我们有办法把这一群人找出来，去做一些事情。管理的第一个就是这里，那这里也是绝对的。
The organization has attracted conservationists and animal lovers, like Joanna Hung, a salesperson from Taipei, who learned how to respond to marine animals in need.
海洋生物他们可能面临，因为可能我们自己的想法就是我可以这样子去帮助他，可是其实如果没有正确的知识的话，其实我们反而可能是会去害他们更严重这样子。对，所以就会因为自己心里想要帮助他们啦，那自己可能也没这么多的力量。
It's not uncommon to come across injured marine life in Taiwan, from beached whales and dolphins to injured sea turtles. But in recent years, researchers are seeing a rise in the number of stranding incidents, from 40 to 60 per year in the past, up to 90.
And we have evidence that shipping traffic and fishing and even pollution play a very big role.
Responding to this trend has been a challenge, and the majority of animals that become beached on Taiwan shores do not survive, including, sadly, this dwarf sperm whale. But for the Taiwan Cetacean Society and its volunteers like Joanna, giving washed-up whales and dolphins a fighting chance makes the effort worthwhile. Ethan Pan and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
The 2024 Paris Paralympics ended on Sunday evening after 11 days of intense competition. But the magic of the games will live on in spectators' memories. Tiffany Wong reports.
Going out with a bang, the skies above Paris lit up with fireworks one last time in farewell to the 2024 Paralympic Games. Onlookers cheered as they watched on in the rain. It's been a busy summer for Paris, which saw a record 12 million visitors during the month-long Olympic and Paralympic Games. French attendees said the ceremony brought their capital to life in a new way with an electro-party at the Stade de France Stadium.
Et c'est vrai que j'avais jamais vécu ce côté d'une foule entière, enfin, vraiment l'expansion énorme, d'être énorme comme ça, d'avoir vraiment ce soutien moral. Enfin, c'était juste dingue.
C'était une fête géante. On a fait que danser pendant 1 heure, tous les gens autour de nous, et il y avait une ambiance de fou, quoi. C'était incroyable. Franchement, on en a pris plein les yeux.
It was a joyful way to end the intense competition. In this year's games, China, the UK, and the US came out on top, each team earning over 100 medals. Taiwan received 5, with each of its table tennis athletes taking home a medal, plus another bronze in Taekwondo. Although the Paris Games are over, the Olympics have left their mark on the city, and the Olympic rings will stay on Paris's most iconic landmark, even as the Olympic torch heads to Los Angeles, which will host the next Summer Games in 2028. Devin Tsai and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
And thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, get ready to get dirty. The 50th Mud Bowl American football event took place over the weekend in the state of New Hampshire. Here are some highlights. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.